Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer in that order. Welcome everyone. Today we're going to look at the resale value of the four major grading companies, compare them to each other, compare them to the same companies in different grades. Basically only looking at modern cards and at the top of the scale, so 10s, 9.5s, and 9s. Of course, the big four companies we're referring to are PSA, SGC, Beckett, and CSG. As you can see, 4 copies of the 89 score. Barry Sanders in a mint 9 right here. So I want to do this somewhat scientifically, but of course my research department is limited in both scope and brain power. But I picked 6 cards, 3 from the ultra-modern era, as you can see here, 1 from each of the big 3 major sports, and then 3 from the junk wax era, again, 1 from each of the 3 major sports, and looked at all the recent sales of all of these cards in all the different grades across all the different grading companies. And these are 6 cards that have a lot of sales, so there's a lot of data to use here. You can be fairly sure that when you calculate what the average recent sale of one of these cards in, say, a PSA 9, you can be pretty sure that that's accurate as of today because, again, there's just a lot of recent sales to go off of. So we'll start with our ultra-modern examples, and this is just what the card sells for in various grades. Again, we're looking at all grades 9, 9.5, and 10 from the 4 major grading companies. We're excluding the extreme grades like the CSG Perfect 10s or the SGC Gold Label 10s or the BGS Black Label 10s. Not looking at those. And we're going to average all of these together in just a minute, which will sort of tell the story a lot better than this chart here. Here's the Shohei Ohtani. You can see it's $190 in a PSA 10, about double that for a BGS 10. The Mahomes is an $860 card in a PSA 10. Again, no recent sales of the card in a BGS 10. Again, that was a little bit surprising, but you can see the various grades here, the various prices here. All right, so taking all the data from those 3 cards and averaging it out and making PSA 10 the baseline. If we do that, meaning a PSA 10, a copy of, say, a random ultra-modern card sells for $100, here's what you should expect the SGC 10, the BGS 10, and the CSG 10 to sell for as well. The SGC should sell for about $65, the BGS would sell for about $197, and the CSG 10 would sell for about $44. Now, again, only looked at 3 cards here, but I would imagine these 3 cards do a pretty good job representing ultra-modern base cards as a whole, and perhaps ultra-modern, not just base cards, but sort of more standard cards. Obviously, if your cards are really, really rare, super low serial number, everything sort of goes out of whack. But I'm talking about more standard cards that there's a high quantity of. This is probably a fairly decent representation when you're referring to ultra-modern. And what this just means is that you should expect an SGC 10 to sell for roughly 65% of a PSA 10. Now the BGS 10, as you can see there, is basically double the PSA 10, but BGS 10s are really, really hard to get. The hardest of these 4 grades by far. If we go look at just Gem Mint grades, so sticking with 10s on the others but dropping the BGS to the Gem Mint 9.5, you can see the BGS 9.5 drops way down, basically in line with what a CSG 10 would sell for. And then regarding 9s, if a PSA 10 copy of a card sells for $100, ultra modern, you should expect the PSA 9 to sell for about $30, the SGC 9 to sell for about $22, BGS 9 about $22, and CSG about $19, as you can see here. Now, if we go back to this one, this is the Gem Mint chart, and to me, this is really the most telling chart. I personally use PSA more than any other the other companies, but I would really like to see all 4 of these companies succeed and have the resale value be fairly close. And you hear a lot of people say the other companies are sort of closing the gap on PSA, but if we're being honest with ourselves, they really aren't. I mean, PSA is basically, the resale value is basically double the other companies. Now, I don't think it's particularly healthy for the hobby long term. Like I said, I'd much rather see something other than one company just totally dominating the resale value category here. And especially because I've used all 4 companies, and I can say quite confidently that in general, a card in a CSG 10 holder is going to be just as nice as a card in a PSA 10 holder. Same with SGC, same with Beckett. So when you're paying double, you're really paying only for the label, and that's sort of the way the hobby has gone, for better or for worse. All right, let's look at our 3 junk wax era cards, and the data overall here is very similar, although there are 2 notable differences, which we'll talk about in just a sec, between junk wax era and the ultra-modern era. 89 tops traded Ken Griffey Jr. You can see a PSA 10 goes for about $118. Look at that BGS 10, big money card in a BGS 10. 89 score Barry Sanders, a little over $1,000 in a PSA 10, and all the way down to $76 for a CSG 9. And the David Robinson Hoops rookie, about $300 for a PSA 10, and again, huge jump up in the BGS 10, to $3,600 for a BGS Pristine 10 copy of the David Robinson rookie. So we take all the sales data from those 3 cards, average it out, and then make PSA 10 the baseline. So again, if a card from the junk wax era is going to sell for $100 in a PSA 10, here's what you should expect it to sell for in the other grades. In an SGC 10, it would sell for about half. In a CSG 10, it would also sell for about half. Look at that BGS 10. Wow, that's quite the jump. And, I thought that maybe these 3 were an outlier regarding the BGS 10, but no, I checked some other junk wax era cards, and it's sort of in line with this. BGS 10's big money, 7 times multiplier here over the PSA 10 for junk wax era cards. If we look at the gem mint grades, again, keeping the 10s for PSA, SGC, and CSG, but dropping Beckett to a 9.5 as that's their gem mint grade, you can see Beckett really plummets. They're actually the lowest valued of the 4 companies when it comes to a gem mint grade in the junk wax era. And this is the problem, Beckett is having. This is why they tried, they're considering changing their scales, and they're trying to figure out what to do, because they just do not give out very many 10s, but their 9.5 grade has really lost a lot of demand. And especially with, again, I'm not talking about like rookie patch autos or rare cards. I'm talking about standard cards, base cards. Nobody wants the Beckett 9.5s, or there's just a lot less demand for 9.5s. They want the 10s, but Beckett doesn't give out 10s. So people are becoming very hesitant of sending cards to Beckett. And again, that's sort of the problem they're facing at the moment. And the other really noticeable difference between the 2 eras is the value of cards in a 9. These are the values of a card if a PSA 10 sells for $100. So a PSA 9 is $13, 13%, a 9 to a 10, and all the other companies really, really cheap. You can see there with the ultra modern era is more like $25, $30. These numbers were, but here we're in the right around $10 for a mint 9 grade copy, and that makes sense because both eras obviously have very, very high supply, but the ultra modern era probably has a little more demand. And going back to the gem mint chart, same as before. This really sort of tells the story. PSA 10 is basically selling for double the other 3 companies. And, if you have an 89 tops traded Ken Griffey Jr. and you want to grade it and sell it, there's really no justification sending it to any other company other than PSA. And I don't know how we get out of that loop. If we get out of that loop, how, what, where, when, why. But that's where we sit as of today. Here's all the numbers on one chart. Nothing really more to say. I've already sort of said everything. But, if you wanted to pause the video and take a look at this in more detail, have at it. But that's it. Thank you everyone for watching, and would really love to get comments from people on this one. Did the numbers surprise you? Do you think this is a problem or not? If it is a problem, what can we do about it? What's your just sort of overall thoughts on the data you saw here? But appreciate everyone watching, and see you all again real soon. Thanks everyone.